Okay, welcome to our Bucky weekend call for May 3rd and 4th, depending on which continent you're on. We're discussing a fuller explanation, and we left off somewhere. I'll find it while we're doing our little introductions. Oh, we're somewhere around page 141, and actually, it was on page 140. And we'll talk about the chef's hat back to the tetrahedron. What we're talking about is um, we're talking about an aspect of interprecessing, which is what happens when these spheres shift around and close pack. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm learning a lot in our discussions. Manu, welcome this early morning in Africa. How are you feeling, and what do you anticipate to get out of today's call?
Feeling good. Feeling good. Back in Cape Town yesterday, from a trip, I attended weddings and things like that. It was fantastic. So I went up north, about what? You say 1,000 miles from here, over 1,000 miles. And yeah, it's good. I feel good. Um, what I expect is that, we continue on the very, very interesting discussions that we had the week before Easter break here. And that we kind of draw some practical applications of what we study. That's my aim. And how do you feel? What do you expect?
I'm glad to be here as usual. And yes, I realized that you move forward about 6 or 7 pages. So I'm gonna have to catch up on that one. Um, Pretty interesting talking about chef's hat. How did they get from those little, you know, since we're talking about post packing all the way to chef's hat? Very interesting. So I'm looking forward to have a better understanding on this one and what comes out of our discussions. Yeah. Richard, how do you feel and what do you expect today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Spring has sprung here in Calgary in Canada. I was just reflecting on Manu saying 1,000 miles north takes you to where, Manu?
To Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga is Nelspruit. It's about
Okay.
2,000 kilometers from here. So I flew
Right.
to Johannesburg. Then I drove about 400 kilometers, 500 kilometers it's a 4 hours drive to Mpumalanga, near the Kruger Park. Very close,
Okay.
very, very close to the Kruger Park.
I've driven that road from Johannesburg out to Kruger Park.
Yes, that's the road. The
Right.
entry.
Wow.
Yes.
Was that Kruger National Park? Stayed outside it?
Yes.
Was there for a
Yeah,
couple
just
of days?
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it,
I
love
was
it.
in
I
White.
loved it.
I was in White River. White River is just Kruger is actually at the yes.
I've been there, close to there. Yes. Wow.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to more of fuller explanation. One of the things that is exciting about my participation on the Trim Tab group is that one of the members is posting sections from Synergetics every day, and then he's doing a brief YouTube recording explanation. And the whole goal is to get through all of Synergetics by November of 2027. And the reason November 2027 was picked is because that is supposed to be the month, and I'm not sure what the date is, but the month that that Fuller made his big turnaround when he was on the edge of Lake Michigan thinking about ending his life, and he decided not to. So it's fascinating when you hear somebody read sections from Synergetics and then they do a very brief explanation, and it's very educational and edifying. So, Steve, how are you feeling, and what's your expectations for this evening?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. It has been almost summer here. It was 80 degrees, I think, maybe 81. And I went out and sat in the sun and got some vitamin D for today. And so I've been enjoying the weather. I had a daughter who graduated from the university, and her party was on Sunday or Friday afternoon, and she left for Spain today. Um, and so that was kind of fun to be in that. I had some other stuff going on, and so it's been a full week. Um, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I want to kind of bring us up to kind of a par of where we are, because I hope I'm representing this well, and if I'm not, I invite you to correct me. Here is, we saw in the past, we've been studying this idea of close packing and the idea of how do you go from a rectangular configuration to this angular? How do you go from a square pattern to compressed into a rhomboid? And so what's happening is going from the cube octahedron, and those little squares right there are compressing, they're nesting. The top row nests into the second row, which nests into the third row, which nests into the fourth row, meaning that the bottom of this loop slides down in between those two, the cavity that's created there into the convex space there, and thus we create close packing. So in this process is called precessing, and interprecessing. And one of the things we learned last week, I think, was that the idea when these two balls are stacked up and they're side by side, like in a square configuration, when they compress on each other, they don't go in a square. They, in fact, fold into each other, they nest into each other and become a tetrahedron. So this is two close packed pairs of spheres creates a tetrahedron because they interprecess, they roll together. And then as we consider this conversation, I'm not really clear on what this is, the tetrahedron as a chef's hat. We're going to be talking about that partially today anyway. And we left off right here with the chef's hat back to the tetrahedron. So here we have a chef's hat. I don't know. Does that look like a chef's hat to you? And then we have here a chef's hat back to a tetrahedron, and that's where we left off last week. So we're going to be continuing to reading from here, but that's kind of a introduction of what we've been going through and where we are. Did I report that accurately to everyone's satisfaction? Are there any questions or comments or issues about it?
Well, I think so. I mean, even what you just said now was very helpful for me on figure 8-5 or 15, because as you said, when you slide from the square shape over into the rhombotic shape, what you're doing is the balls are just sliding over into closest packing. And just as you were describing that, all of a sudden I saw it as clear as I've ever seen it. So thank you.
Wonderful. I'm so thrilled and delighted. And in the process
Yeah.
of being
But
so delighted, I
one thing, Steve, always remember that the key to get to the rhombus is the square and the rotation.
Right.
And the rotation is brought about by the fact that the space is finite, it's curves. When you apply, if you apply any force, anything to something that is limited, what it will do, it will turn.
Yeah.
It will turn, it will have the effect of helicoidal. It's going to do this.
Right.
Anything.
It'll turn and it'll spiral because the nature of the universe is this toral energy that's constantly spinning and turning. So its tendency is to roll onto itself and roll around on itself. Yeah.
But my point is, a simple point is that is a consequence of curvature and finiteness.
Cool.
You take any experiment, anything, you take spheres, you put in a cylinder in a glass, and you put your finger on top of it and you press, you're going to see that the set is going to rotate and go up.
Yeah.
It is just the consequence of the fact that it is finite, and then it is curved.
Right on. Perfect. We're going to be reading more about that now. So,
Steve,
go ahead, Anne.
I just want to say something else became very clear because you know, the idea of precession, right? The precessing part, and then because just pulling out what was the essence of it, I was so clear as well. You know, the two balls and then the four balls that that sits on top, and then it goes into the tetrahedron. That
Yes.
became so clear so fast, like within a few seconds, the explanation became so clear. So moving forward today, it'll be so much easier. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And that process is called interprecessing because
Right.
precession is constantly going on, but when we close pack it, kind of interfaces a little bit more precisely, creating the tetrahedron. So cool. I'm glad you guys got something out of that. I thought.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll
And
start
last thing
reading.
is Manu,
Okay.
just now when you just added.
Go ahead.
Okay. Just
Yes, sir.
Manu just now just added that in the spiral part when you started talking about that, and then Manu explained the glass if you put it in.
Yes.
Okay, that like just ties up everything
That
very,
ties
very
everything.
nicely. Thank you so much.
You betcha.
Mm.
Good. All right, so I'll start reading, but then I like trading off reading. So I'll read about a page, and if anybody else wants to read, you certainly can. Along the same lines, we now look at 60-degree twists. Oh boy, we get to do 60 degrees. An especially pleasing example involves two simplest triangles of 3 spheres each. The triangles face each other directly, then one rotates 60 degrees for pushing them together, and the result is an octahedron. Two simplest triangles of 3 spheres each. The triangles face each other directly, and then one rotates 60 degrees before pushing them together, and the result is an octahedron. Boy, I wish we had a little animation on that. The 6 spheres are precisely situated. Here comes Joe. The 6 spheres are precisely situated as octahedron vertices, framing 8 triangles. So I'm picturing an octahedron. There's an octahedron inside of this double tetrahedron, and it's blue inside those inside here, and so it says that there are 6 spheres precisely situated as an octahedron vertices, and so that means 4 around the square, and then 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom. And I love the octahedron because this is the perfect example of the Kabbalic and the Native American 7 directions. You have the 4 around it forming the square horizontally, and then those are the cardinal directions, and then the top and the bottom are the up and the down as or the out and out, depending on what your perspective is. That these other 2 balls create the octahedron. So I'm kind of getting that. I'm not sure how we got there from 3 triangles. Joe, how are you feeling? And what do you anticipate for today?
Hey everybody, I'm feeling pretty good actually, and now I'm just looking forward to continuing with a fuller explanation. Apologies, a little bit late there, and yeah, I mean, as we're getting started here, you know, just to continue to learn about yeah. Well, I'm trying to think about a little bit what we covered last week, but especially just the idea of the economical use of space, which we've been really kind of covering this whole time. So I'll just leave it there for now.
Cool. Well, glad you
Steve?
made it. I just wanted to
Steve?
point out there's a picture right here of 2
Yes.
tetrahedra that roll into an
This
octahedron.
is what he's talking about. Yeah,
Okay,
right?
good.
That's it. 2 triangle. You see the green is first triangle. The green is first triangle here.
Mm.
Right? Then you have a bond that is made. You have here, say an
Okay.
hydrogen. This is hydrogen here. Right? This is an hydrogen molecule. Yeah. The hydrogen come and does this. Create a double bond, and this rotates. You see that? Rotates. And what will happen is that there's going just to be a bond between these two closures to make it a tetrahedron. You see that? And
You can't really see what he's talking about without doing it with balls instead of the balls and the connectors. Because then when you put the
yeah,
three
yeah,
ball,
the connectors is just to expand it so that the eye can see properly. But the game is between the spheres. So these are the three spheres first. Yeah. And then there is one sphere here, which is the hydrogen. The hydrogen has two bonds. Yeah. So the hydrogen comes here and then connect here. Then you have two triangles that can rotate. It rotates 30 degrees here, 60 degrees in here. And then another, just one bond is found between this to make a tetrahedron.
right?
Okay. All right. So this tool is invaluable. I hope everybody has it. And you have this? And
No,
do
I
you have
don't.
that?
No, I don't.
No, you should. You should buy it. We did it. When did you buy? When did you buy, Steve? As a group, we bought each. That is about 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
What would I be looking for if I wanted to buy it?
It is called the Magic Magnetic Building Set. Here it is. It's by CMS Magnetics.
The Magic Magnetic Building Set. Okay, got it.
Yes, by CMS Magnetics. CMS.
Okay.
Yeah, I have something similar too.
Yeah,
Mm.
it is very, very interesting.
Okay, got it.
It looks like Steven's.
What do you say, Joe?
Looks like Steven's frozen there. He's frozen.
Steve, I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on.
He's
So they
having
have a
trouble with
magnetic,
the internet.
they have a magnetic storm in Utah. Uh, uh, should we wait or should we read?
We can try and read.
He's coming back in.
We can wait a second.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, it's back.
Okay, good. I'm back over there. All right. Okay, I'm back. This recording is going crazy, so I don't know what that thought. But I'll be glad to. So,
Kind of hear him. We can go. Barely.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Now we
Yes, we
can.
can hear you,
It's
Steve.
terrible.
Oh, but it looks like he froze again.
Hmm.
Well, we can actually try and get started. I mean, what was the last page we were on there?
Do we all have the book?
We did. I have it, but unfortunately, my pages don't align exactly with
Right.
the PDF, and
Hey, Joe,
so
can you hear me?
yes, I can now.
Yes, I
Yep.
can hear you.
Okay, I made him the co-host, so I'm going to.
Oh, well, I hope everybody's doing well. But yeah, so when we trying to try and find is I want to say
Find the graphic 819. So that means chapter 8.
yeah, I'm there. 819. I have 8.
So, Joe, can you hear me?
I can.
You can?
Yes, I can.
I can't. I can see your mouth move, but I can't hear on my phone. I made you the co-host, and you're probably the host now.
Okay.
So I'm going to do what I can to come back into the meeting. But as we continue to read, it's up to you guys. You can
Okay.
run it any way. Okay? I'm sorry, and I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to reboot my phone and see if I can come in.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Good to you.
Yeah, so I'm you're looking at diagram 8. I'm at
Do
840.
I have to go have sex?
The second paragraph after the 819 diagram, the figure.
I don't know how I got so much further ahead of you guys. I'm wondering if it lines up.
Can you find it?
No, I'm at 840. It's listed.
No, you're a little ahead of us.
Yeah, let me
If
do.
you're looking for it, I can read where we left off, or where Steve left off.
Manu, do you have the book?
Yes.
I do have two.
Yeah, I've got it too.
So I think go ahead then.
Yeah,
Richard?
go ahead, Richard.
Because next, let's take 2/8 octahedron 7-ball sets, the 6-ball triangle with the 7th ball in the central
Just
nest.
one question. What page are you?
140.
Back. I was saying I think we have some different books, so we have to go by the graphics rather than page numbers.
Sounds good.
I am.
mean,
I am there. I am there. I have the page, Richard. I have the page.
Okay, I'm able to listen in on you guys, but I think that's it for me. If I can comment, I'll do so, okay?
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you all for your patience.
Don't worry about
And
it.
I think the idea, good. And I think going with the graphics is a good idea. So you all saw that last graphic we did, right?
Yeah, we're now approaching figure 819.
Yeah,
And
we started reading below 819. And we're approaching 820.
yeah,
So, and I read the first paragraph.
yeah. And I started to read the second one, the next
Good.
paragraph.
And I'll
So
listen.
I'll start at that paragraph again. Next, let's
Wonderful.
take two 8th octahedron 7-ball sets, the 6-ball triangle with the 7th ball in the central nest. The two triangular bases of each cluster face each other, and then one is rotated 60 degrees, allowing the triangles to come together as a 6-pointed star, and suddenly the 14 balls become a cube. This is the minimum stable cube formed out of spheres, 819. 8 spheres
820.
alone. 8 spheres
That
alone.
would be not 819. Richard, you read 819 and my book says 820. Is my book wrong?
Yeah, well, my book doesn't have an 820 until we get over to, well, my book doesn't have an 820, it's 819.
Okay, continue reading.
So 8 spheres alone, positioned at the 8 corners of the cube, are not close packed, and that configuration would therefore be unstable, as the spheres have a tendency to roll into the unoccupied valleys. In fact, just as a floppy toothpick cube needed 6 extra diagonal sticks, the 6 edges of a tetrahedron, to stabilize the square faces, 8 balls also require an additional 6 to complete a stable cube. Thus, we have 14 balls together, parallel to the 14 topological parameters, vertices plus edges plus faces, of the tetrahedron. The cube in every stable form seems to be based on an implied tetrahedron.
Let's put
Okay,
let's
do you
put-
have
let's put this. Richard, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. The first point that I see is that to say a stable cube is a misnomer.
Right.
A cube is always unstable. It's never stable.
Right.
What she is explaining here with a tetrahedron is that when you put struts in the cube, the implied tetrahedron that she talk about is the struts in the cube. Then it make the cube stable.
That's right. That's why the sentence that says 8 spheres alone, positioned as the 8 corners of the cube, are not close packed, and that configuration would therefore be unstable.
Yes. But just before that, she said a stable cube. So that is a little bit confusing. But the description is impeccable. The fact that they are not closest packed make them unstable.
Yeah, well, the sentence says this is the minimum stable cube formed out of spheres, 819.
It is okay.
actually my book says
This is
820.
this is semantic now, but semantics, but it is not the word stable at that level is not. He should have just said the minimum cube. That's all, not the minimum stable cube. Then she will come with a description here underneath in the paragraph underneath, and it will be clear to everybody that in order to stabilize the cube, you need struts. That is implied tetrahedron that she's talking inside. You need to structure it. You need to structure it inside. If I take a cube, again, just continue. I'll do it here. with the balls.
Okay, but can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, well, look, I'm noticing that I think that's probably Joe that shared his Kindle book. And down in that yellow paragraph that Joe has marked, it says cube formed out of spheres, figure 859. My
Right.
book says 820.
Right.
My book
Mine's-
says 820.
That's what, yeah.
And the diagram that he has is 859. Mine has 820. So,
Yeah, and
Richard,
mine has
do you have a
8:19.
And so what is the diagram at the top of the paragraph that you read? At the top of the page of the paragraph you read that Joe has highlighted, what is that figure called?
819.
On my book,
Okay,
it's
and-
8:18b.
Okay, and in
All right,
and
well,
in
that's interesting.
and in Joe's book it's 858. So
Yeah,
and
mine's
so
yeah.
But the
yeah,
text is
okay. Well, I
exactly
just
the
want to bring
same.
that point of information out.
Well, in the yellow,
Yeah, but the
what
illustrations
Manu
are the
was
same.
getting at is the sentence that says, "This is the minimum stable cube formed out of spheres, 859," or mine 819.
Okay,
And that's the
but if
one
I
he's
look at
challenging, and then goes on because the subsequent sentences explain what he was getting at in terms of how do you stabilize a cube.
well, I'm happy to hear his explanation because I don't understand the whole conversation, and I don't understand those diagrams. I see the cube drawn in the on the page here, 859. I see the cube and I see spheres at each of the vertices of the cube. But there's extra balls there and I don't understand it. And so Manu is going to explain that, I suppose.
Well, the text explains it as well.
Well, how does the text explain it? Because I don't get it.
Well, it starts off with, in fact, just as a floppy toothpick cube needed 6 extra diagonal sticks, the 6 edges of the tetrahedron, it goes on to explain how you stabilize the cube.
And how do you stabilize a cube?
Yeah.
By putting in the diagonal sort of struts that
Do you
stabilize
see
it.
what I have?
Oh,
Okay. You have to show it up
Okay.
in the middle. Yeah, you have to look at that.
Okay, look at the green and look at the red. If I take out the red, the green is a cube. It's not stable. You see that?
Yeah.
It is not stable at all.
Manu,
Let me
you have
take
to
it.
hold it. You have to hold it in front of your
Yeah,
camera.
hold on. Let me first take this out.
Yeah.
I take the red out. This is a cube.
Right.
It's never stable.
Right.
There it is. Okay? Yeah, it is. It's not stable. It is structure that's not stable. It's in equilibrium, yes, but it's not stable.
Manu, you have to
Now,
hold it
if I,
higher up and to your
Yeah,
right.
you have to hold it up a little bit,
Yeah.
And to
but
your right.
to my right like this,
Ah,
yes.
yes, perfect, perfect.
Okay, you see this. Now I start strutting it. To strut it, I need to rotate it first. And then I start putting links like this. You see this? You see that? I put
Interesting.
the
You have to hold it
corresponding
up.
one on. Yes, I put the corresponding one here. You see that? Triangle.
Mm.
You have to hold it up a little higher.
Yes. It's already a little bit stable. It's stabler. So I put another strut here, and I put its correspondent. Look at that.
You
And
can
then I
see
put its correspondent here.
You can see how the
You see that?
minimum structure comes within that.
Yes, you see that?
Hold it more to your right. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Then I put another one here
Wow.
like that. And then I put it here like that. I put the corresponding one here. You see? See now? This is stable.
Yeah.
And these are the tetrahedra that are in. They're struts. That's always triangulating. Nature always triangulates to realize the minimum. Always.
Well, I don't see a cube there.
You don't see a cube? The cube is a green.
Yeah, it's where it started.
I started with the green. The green is a cube. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 12. 12 edges.
Well, when you put that red support between at the top there, you make it a rhombus. You make it a hinged diamond. It's no longer a square. It's now a rhombus.
Yes. And you use the word rhombus. Rhombus imply squares. This is a square. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not a square, but the parallelogram. Yeah, 1. This is another one. And that's another one.
Well, I don't see a cube there and I don't see a square there. I see a trapezoid or a rhombus. I don't see a cube or a square.
Steve, I started with a cube.
Yeah, that's where
The
it
cube
started
is the
with
green,
the green.
is a green structure. The
And that's
volume
what-
of that green structure is still the same. I mean, roughly, minus the rotations. The green is still strictly my cube. That's what I started with. And then I'm just trying to do what she said in the second paragraph here. That when you strut
Yeah.
it and you rotate 60 degrees rotation, this is rotated. If you look at the cube now, look at the face of a cube. It is rotated. Yeah. You see this? This is a
No,
rhombus now,
you don't.
Steve.
You have to show it in your camera. You have
Yeah,
to put
you
it
see
where
the
your
green.
face is.
You see the green face?
Yeah, I see half of it.
It's now become a rhombus now.
That's a rhombus.
Yes. But it was square before.
Right.
And
Before
it
I
was square
strutted.
before.
Okay.
Yes. That's
Manu,
what she's describing here.
okay.
You
Manu, I have
go.
a question.
Yes.
Because I think I have the same confusion as Steve, yeah. Because
Yeah.
when people have that cube thingy, right? So what we do is we put in the diagonal here, and we cross another diagonal, but we also do diagonals inside. So it's still stable. It's stable as a cube, in the shape of a cube. But you have to have those, and it doesn't change the shape of the cube, right? So this, I think, Steve, you and I have that in mind when they talk about stabilizing the cube, right? You put well, like I said, there's a cube. Then you put the diagonals across like this, and another diagonal across like this, and then another diagonal inside the box itself, to hold the space. If I'm not wrong, this is.
Yeah.
Am I
think-
right in saying
I
that?
think what you
And it
get
keeps
in
the
there,
shape?
what you
Impossible.
then have is two tetrahedrons inside.
No, you cannot put two diagonals in a cube. It's impossible. It's
You
just
cross
like a
over.
sphere. Then you cannot, how do you cross the struts? You have to weld them.
Yeah, whatever it is, but that's what we see. You have to hold the
No,
the
I'm
block.
saying,
Mm.
you say, if you want to stabilize, if you look at any real structure,
Mm.
you want to stabilize a sphere, you put
Mm.
another sphere at the center of it, and then you weld the struts
Right.
to the 4 sides, to the 8 sides. So it's a star. You have a square, you have a cube, a cube, and inside a star. You know, inside you have something
Like
like
an
this. Yeah, yes. If you inside you have something like this thing. Let me just put it here.
But the one thing is that you said nature always.
Inside you have something like this, Joe.
Yes.
that goes from the center out into the vertices
Right.
of the cube to stabilize it. But it's never, you will never have something like this. Like this. As Anne was trying to explain. It's impossible. Because how do you put these two together? You see that?
Yeah. Unless you
Impossible.
want.
It is impossible to have this.
Okay, I want to show you what I see.
Yeah.
I have oh geez. I glued this together so it wouldn't fall apart, but that didn't stay. So I'm going to put this down. So there is an octahedron inside of that puppy. You see it? This is actually a double tetrahedron. Now there's a cube here, but the cube is around the outside. See that? There's the central node, and then each of these radii come out and they form a square. Do you see that? Now I have to imagine the square. Let me take a second and put some tape on there, and I'll show you the square. Whew, just barely long enough. Okay, there is the square. Do you see the square around the outside now?
Yeah.
There's a cube there, but it's implied. I see that cube, but when Manu builds his cube, it is not cubical. It's rhomboid. It's trapezoidal.
But she
So
hasn't, Steve,
you-
she hasn't talked about any implied cube.
well, I know, but I'm just saying that the square that I see is an implied square, and I don't see anything else. I'm sorry to say.
Secondly, what you are showing there is a star. It is, who is the beautiful lady there?
It's a double tetrahedron. It's a star tetrahedron.
No, I asked you a
remarkable.
question. Who is the beautiful lady that I see there?
Oh, this is my friend Lee.
Hi, Lee, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Lee is
Hey,
um,
Steve is hiding you. He's hiding
that's
you.
right. I've been hiding her. She's actually been attending for the last month or so.
How are
And
you?
she's a stowaway. She's a stowaway on the Saturday call.
I think Steve knows
She
that
lives
we wouldn't
down-
pay attention to him if she were here.
She lives in an apartment about 8 away from me, and she heard about these meetings, and so I've let her stowaway in. She's been in the silent background. That's what that.
Excellent, excellent. Listening is more blessed and more difficult than talking like we do. You know, talking is cheap.
Well, it took a technical breakdown in my computer to unmask my stowaway. Okay, good. So shall we go
Okay,
back to the
but
topic at hand?
Steve,
Yes.
do you still see my cube? The only thing
No.
of this cube, let me put another cube in blue here and show you what it did. It
Okay,
is
you
rotated and twisted. And that is the essence of motion and dynamics. Let me just put it again.
Okay. I get that it's rotated and twisted, but that makes it not a cube. It makes it something else. And when I look at these,
but when it rotates, it's no more a cube. That's why the cube is unstable.
yeah,
That
and when
is
I look at these, and when I look at this diagram, which I have as 820, that I think somebody else has as 859, I don't see a cube in there either. I see extra spheres. I see a diagram of a cube, but I don't see it.
So
no, but I think Steve,
There.
her point is in every stable structure, in every closest path, there is an implied tetrahedron inside. That's what
that's
what
my
she said.
question.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
So that is the message. In
That's
every
where
implied stuff, in every stable structure, there's an implied tetrahedron.
Mm. Yep, I get it. It's just that it will no longer be in the shape of a square. Yeah, to stabilize
No,
it.
it's not. The square is unstable. meaning that when you reach the square, it changes in a split.
Okay.
It is like the sphere. The sphere, when you reach it, it changes in a split. You know, like the vector equilibrium is not stable. It is an equilibrium, but it's rich in a split and it changes quick,
Right.
very quick.
Let me try explaining what I see is happening. Is that when you have a cube which is unstable and you stabilize it as if you were building a building, you diagonal from corner to corner, but that diagonal is not equal lengths to the sides.
Exact.
So when you do what Manu was doing, he's doing it with equal lengths, I believe.
Yes.
And when you do it with equal lengths, it will not be a cube. It'll be rhombatic.
Exact.
Got it.
So that's the difference.
Yes.
And so we're getting at the same thing, only when you try it with equal lengths all the time, you'll never get a stable cube out of it. But when you angle it in the way that we saw before, when the square balls sort of slide over so they fit in the grooves, then they will stabilize.
I agree with you, Richard, and I 100%. But let's just get into where we are. In reality, we are in a fluid universe, right? It's changing all the time. It's dynamic.
Got it.
So you have 1 trillion of cubes structure that come in. They are fluid. They are changing, and then it reaches discretely a stable state. That stable state is the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the isocosahedron, or the you know, what is the equivalent again? The cubic octahedron. What's the name again? The something like that. But those are the states that you reach. Those are the only 3 states that are stable. Tetrahedron, next to octahedron, and next is icosahedron. It's only 3. So those states, when you reach them, you need an external intervention to disrupt that stability. You get me?
Okay.
When you
Look,
reach
let me
it,
show you.
when I have a tetrahedron, I need to break it. I need something external to come and impulse an energy to disrupt the bonds of the tetrahedron for it to go into something else. And
I
that is
got
the
that.
whole process. That's the whole process of life. This form in which we
But I
are.
do want to
Yes.
share that there are ways to visualize a tetrahedron in a cube. I
Yes,
shared that
yes.
screen just for a moment. And here it is. You guys can see these pictures right here, right?
Right.
Here is here's a cube with a tetrahedron in it.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that's one way to visualize it. A cube around
yes.
a
But
tetrahedron.
that's the point I
But
was
here's
getting
another.
at.
Then
Just,
here,
just hang on, stay there,
sure.
because the angles of the edges of the tetrahedron are not equal to the edges of the cube.
Exact.
That's right.
Exact.
The edges are actually radii. The edges are radii, and in this picture, the radii of the cube are red, and the radii of the tetrahedron are black.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they're different lengths, Richard.
Yeah.
So this coincides with what you were saying, Richard.
Yeah.
And
then
this picture here is the picture I was trying to show you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say what.
Well, let me finish, then I can stop.
Yeah. Right.
Well, go ahead and say. I'm happy to stop my rant. But well, let me go ahead and finish this out. So there's a tetrahedron inside of a cube, and they have different length radii, just as Richard was stating. And then this one here is what I was showing you was the star tetrahedron, which are two tetrahedra together, and there's the implied cube around the star tetrahedron.
Mhm.
But my problem is that did I stop sharing? Okay. My problem is that nothing I'm seeing is coordinating with my picture 820 or 859.
Yeah.
Or
Hey,
whatever
Steve, show
that you
show
have.
again.
And so
Show
I'm
again what
really-
you just showed now, Steve. Show
Well,
it again.
show 859 or my 819 does have the cube in it.
Yeah, there's cubes in there, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Joe has
Yeah.
started sharing, so we'll let Joe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because that drawing doesn't quite go with the description. Yeah, you think
Right.
that
no, not the way it's actually being depicted by Steve and Manuel.
And
Yeah.
right there it says 859, two 1/2 octahedra create a minimum stable cube. I get it. I think I get it. Two 1/2 octahedra. So I visualized that before, but I'm not doing it now. If I take the top of an octahedron, or I take an octahedron and I cut it in half, and I put the top on the bottom and the bottom on the top, and everything connects in the point in the center, I've just created a cube. Two 1/2 octahedra, but I don't see it in that drawing. I'm gonna rest now. I don't see the two 1/2 octahedra up there in that drawing on figure 859. Does anybody else see two 1/2 octahedra?
Steve, I think that cube there is your star, the points of your star.
Ah,
If you visualize it with your star tetrahedron, right? I think, and you join the corners is your cube.
Oh,
Would that work?
we have five spheres, 5 nodes in 1/2 an octahedra. I don't see 5 nodes anywhere there.
No, because
Okay,
you-
can you,
five-
Steve,
Yeah.
just something that can help. Can you show again the figure that you showed that had the tetrahedron in the cube, the one that you had?
Okay.
Steve, can you display it?
Yeah.
the
hang
star
on.
tetrahedron.
No,
And
it had a display. Okay.
oh, wait a minute. Okay, there is a cube with with a tetrahedron in it.
Yes,
Mhm.
show that, show that, show that, show that. Okay. Can you expand on it?
That's as big as I can get it right there.
Okay. Now, do you see the position of the tetrahedron in the cube?
Yes.
It is a transform, what you call an orthogonal transform.
Say it again. It's a what? An octagonal what?
Transform. That is, you chosen the cube has 8 apexes, 8, how do you call it? 8 vertexes.
8 nodes, 8 vertexes. Yeah.
8 vertexes, yes. Vertices, right?
Right.
You choose 4 that are in a 4, like in a orthogonally to the line of 2. Just look at that again. So if you take that diagonal edge, you see you take a diagonal on one face and you choose the vertex that is the closest to it. You see that? Look at the green.
Well,
Yeah.
the green has a
Yeah,
D1.
hold on. Yes, that is very
Well,
important.
it has a marker, so you can call it D101.
Yes. So, and B1, you see D101 and B110.
Mhm.
And then you see
Yeah.
I have C011.
Right.
So, the implied tetrahedron is across it's like it is coming into your Star of David, like the two tetrahedra come. It come orthogonally to the cube.
Yeah.
Do you see that? It
Yeah.
is a transform. That is a transform. That is a strut that you put to stabilize, the minimum strut that you put to stabilize your cube.
Yep.
Obviously, you can stabilize it in a more complicated form. You can put a star, you know, like a sphere in the middle, and then do half stuff, you know, to the 8 vertices. But this is the minimum stabilization of, and as she wrote, there's always an implied tetrahedron that is inside. But the tetrahedron face is not parallel to the cubic face. It is cutting it at 90-degree angle, always. Do you see that? Do you see that if you take the red triangle, it is cutting the face where you have DB, it is cutting it at 90 degrees. You see that? But it's 90 degrees along the trace is the diagonal. You see that? Do you see this?
Yeah.
Yes. If this were the sheet, that DB, the DB will be here. If I trace it here, let me put it in a color here. The DB will be on this sheet. Do you see the diagonal?
Sharing.
Do you see my diagonal
No,
here?
hang on. I've got to stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you see my
sharing.
diagonal?
Now you can show your stuff. Now we can see your
Do you see
diagonal. Yeah.
Yes. So the tetrahedron is coming across the diagonal like this. So it's at 90 degrees to that face.
Yeah.
That's what you.
This one here, this is your standard tetrahedron. And the way it
Yes.
forms a cube is by noticing that this edge is at right angles with this edge, but it's on the other side of the cube.
Exactly.
The green
So
edge
that
is
edge
at right
that is on
angles
the
with
other
the green.
side. Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
that's what happens all the way around. This was a big revelation to me as how we get a tetrahedron gets 4 dimensions or 3 dimensions
Yes.
or 4. How we get 90 degrees out of a tetrahedron. There's one 90 degrees.
Yes.
There's another 90 degrees.
Yep.
And there's another 90 degrees.
Yes. There
And
are
there's a
4
cube.
90 degrees. There are 4 90 degrees.
Yeah.
There's 90 degrees
And
in
the 90
relation to
degrees.
each face. To each face. Yes. There are 4 faces. That's why it's of dimension 4. That's another definition of the 4 dimensions of a tetrahedron. You have XY on 4 planes. You can define XY, XY, XY 4 times.
Because there are 6 faces on a cube. But
No,
that's
I'm
just
saying
a multiple of 3D. A cube is 3D. And there are 6 faces.
A cube
This
is not
tetrahedron
3D.
4D.
A cube is
What
more
is a
than
cube?
4D. It's more than 4D. The generalized cube. Because when I take this cube here, this is a generalized cube. The topological definition of a cube is this. Is anything, a rhombus is a cube. You know.
Steve, if you look at your star tetrahedron, is it, or octahedron?
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
And then
tetrahedron.
you see the when you combine when you draw a line at all the points, right, you will get your cube.
That's right.
Look at this beautiful guy here. It has twisted and collapsed. And you have your rhombus here. Nice. It's just that some of the bonds are double.
So if you look at
What do
the eight, what's that, the diagram 820 or 859?
Yeah,
Because by right then
why don't you show that? Why don't you show that, Joe? Show the 859.
so the cube is actually all the points, the 8 points of the star. So then it accounts for the other balls inside. Does that help? Because it was because you showed me the star and then you showed me where the square is, and then suddenly when I looked at this diagram, I'm seeing the star inside that, and the cubes are actually the points out, the 4 points there, and you know the other 4 points below, and connecting them all forms the cube.
Do you know,
You
guys,
take that. You take that out again.
I'm excited. You know why?
Why?
Because there are two beautiful ladies on the call today. And then the second thing is that we cannot invent a tetrahedron. It exists. God made it.
Oh,
That's
It's
what
there.
I'm trying to get my head around, actually.
Yes, but we can invent the square. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
The square is the key to dynamics.
Steve, sorry, carry on, Manu.
I say this, the square is the key to dynamic because the square is not stable.
Right.
So the square is moving. It can go from a perfect, like 490 degrees log like this to something flat to like this. And that is really creation, isn't it? That is design. That's what allows us to design. If there were no square, we tend to kind of underestimate the importance of a square.
Oh, no, I mean,
in the
true.
organic dynamics of creation. Yes, Richard.
I'm just going to try something different that I just was doing on a piece of paper here, and I started with a square. So draw a square, and then turn it into a 2x2 matrix. In other words, you draw a vertical and a horizontal in the square. And then how do you get a tetrahedron out of that? Is when you have those 90-degree corners and you angle from the top down to the horizontal, and then the horizontal back to the vertical, and then the vertical up to the horizontal, and the horizontal back to the vertical, and you now have a tetrahedron shape inside the square.
right. That's what
Yes.
that's what my diagram showed on the the diagram I showed. Joe, would you throw back up the wording again? Go
Steve,
ahead, Ann. Yeah.
Steve, I have a suggestion. I think if you put the 859 or 820 next to the star tetrahedron, if you put the two next to each other, I think you will see the cube, because the star tetrahedron just doesn't have the balls. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a star tetrahedron.
You know
right
the
here.
diagram. You just get that diagram that you found for us, the one with the star tetrahedron, and I think put it side by side with this 859. You will see where the cube is and why the other balls are in there and not accounted for. Does that help? You just put it side by side, I think you'll see it.
Maybe, but here's my problem: is these words here that Joe's put on the thing. It says, next, let's take two half octahedron 7-ball sets. The 6-ball triangle with a 7th ball in the center nest. So now I've got a half of a octahedron. So I've got 4 balls around the square and 1 at the top. That's 5. It says a 7-ball set. Let's like 2 half octahedron 7-ball sets. I don't get it. 6-ball
So
triangle.
Okay,
Then
there
it
are
says,
there are two
Go
7
ahead.
ball sets, right? So you pull it together, it'll form the other shape.
I don't see the two 7-ball sets, Sam. That's my problem.
Okay, the you know
Why you
the
can't 7, Steve?
there's
It's
one on the left
there.
and one on the right,
Yeah.
and you bring them
The
together.
one on the left and
So
one
there are
I'm looking at.
14
Is
balls
it what is
altogether.
displayed here? Is it the thing that is displayed?
Yes.
There are 14
Okay.
balls there actually.
One,
Two
one,
7 balls,
two,
one left, one right. You pull them together. I've been looking at the thing. I didn't see it earlier either. You know, Steve.
Well, I
see,
do see the
on-
two 7-ball
on the
sets, so
left,
that's
7
a
balls. On
revelation,
the right,
Ann. Thank you very much.
7 balls. Pull it together.
Yep,
And it forms 14 balls.
yep.
And
It
then
says here-
to the 14 topological parameters, vertices plus edges plus faces of the tetrahedron.
What a beauty.
Okay, now that's my friend Lee has a device that whistles based on her blood sugar. So
Mhm.
Oh.
that's what that is. So it's a medical, not emergency, but it is essential. Now, and I think I got the vision, Anne, from your invitation to look at 7 balls. So I do see two sets of 7 balls coming together to make a 14-ball something. I
Yes.
can visualize the two sets of 7, but I don't see the 14. And then I read these words: the two triangular bases of each cluster face each other, and then one is rotated 60 degrees,
Yeah.
allowing the triangles to come together as a minimum stable cube formed out of spheres. And this is figure 859.
Yeah.
So that is a minimum stable cube.
Yeah, the cube is the vertices, the corners that you had in your star tetrahedron, because the two
Steve,
faces.
the other sphere that you don't see is in the center. Is inside. That's what
right.
makes the strut. That's what makes the strut. It's hidden inside. A stable cube has an implied
In fact,
tetrahedron.
I now
that
see
is
it,
inside.
everybody. I now see it. If you take 5 balls,
Right.
you have four forming each of the cubes and stick a ball in the middle, and you have 4 balls on the bottom square and stick a ball in the middle. That's 5 and 5 are 10. And then if you nest 4 balls between those, you now have 14 balls.
Exactly.
Yep.
Voila.
Exactly.
Voila. It is so.
That is all the power that God gave you. That's it.
Right there. I'm gonna
Yeah,
put it
it's
down in my,
there. It's there. It's
I'm
nothing
gonna
else.
put it in my
That's
family
the
Bible.
power. That's the divine power of creation. But
Yeah.
we don't want to put the effort into understanding what it means.
Well, evidently we do tonight.
Yeah. It gave
the
you
seven-
it gave you a triangle and a cube and say go and play with in many samples. That's what it did.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Well,
do we
thank
wanna
you so much,
continue
guys.
Does everybody
Crazy.
see how there's a 14-ball cube? Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
5 on the top, 5 on the bottom, and then 4 nested in between so the 5 sit together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, good. Joe, throw up the wording. Let's read the next paragraph if we have enough guts to do so. Richard, do you want to continue reading? Please share, Joe and Richard. Do you want to continue reading, or Richard, have you passed out?
No, I've got it here. Yeah.
I'm almost passed out. Joe, please share.
Yep. Hang on.
Okay.
This is called a final philosophical note. Manu thinks it's a divine intervention note.
That's right. I'm putting in my family
All
Bible.
nature,
so
I
it better
guess.
be. Okay, who wants to read that next paragraph?
A final philosophical note. Fuller pointed out that the sphere packing models encourage us to conceive of an area and a volume in terms of discrete quanta instead of as the physically impossible continuums promoted by traditional geometry. Because there
Wow,
are
yeah. Please scroll, Joe. Go ahead, Richard.
because there are no experimentally known continuums, we cannot concede validity to the concept of continuous surfaces or of a continuous solids.
Hey, Joe, you've lost the screen.
No, it's he's reading the smaller text.
The blue text, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Oh, it goes to the next page. Is that what it does for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will go. Yeah.
Okay, good.
The
Continue.
dimensional
Richard.
characteristics we use to refer to as areas and volumes, which are always the second and third power values of linear increments, we can now identify experimentally, arithmetically, and geometrically only as quantum units that aggregate as points, both in a system embracing areal aggregates and as volume occupant aggregates. Wow. The areal volumetric quanta of separately island points are always accountable numerically as the second and third powers of the frequency of modular subdivision of the system's radial or circumferential vectors.
Well, I think I'm actually understanding what's there, but Joe, I don't see those words on the screen.
There
Right.
they are.
Can you find the next paragraph? Where it says he argued, so it's as
Yeah,
Richard
let's
continues
read the
to-
whole of that stuff of the Panphilosophical note. I think it's important.
Okay, he argued that the sphere polyhedra having the advantage of visibly separate subunits illustrate the otherwise invisible truth about physical reality. An awareness of the particles inherent in all physical systems, in brackets on some level of resolution, end brackets, is nurtured because in the sphere packings, it is so logical to express volume and area in terms of number of units. The examples of the VE and the icosahedron models demonstrate how the terms of expressing lengths, which is frequency, and area, number of particles, are actually related by a formula 10f to the 10f squared plus 2, as would be necessary in a new geometry.
Okay, I'm having a revelation. Go ahead if you want to continue reading.
Okay, Fuller attributed the precedent for thinking about volume in terms of quanta to Amedeo Avogadro, 1776 to 1856, and his discovery that equal volumes of all gases under the same conditions of pressure and temperature contain the same number of molecules. Avogadro therefore identified volume with the number of molecules a long time ago. We take this step a step further by remembering that although we tend to conceive of volume as a spatial continuum, our convention for quantifying an amount of space uses number of imaginary cubes, even if that quantity usually involves an extraneous partial cube or fraction tacked onto a whole number. We shall discuss the subject of volume more fully in Chapter 10. For now, we simply lay the groundwork with the evidence that polyhedra can be constructed out of a multitude of spheres at different frequencies, and that the resulting models play an important role in satisfying Fuller's criteria for a geometry consistent with universe.
Wow. I'm having a full-on epiphany.
Start, Steve.
Go for it.
Then I'll say my own. Just go on.
Okay. Well, maybe I could hold it for the takeaways, but what I envisioned in my last meditation was I was visualizing my body, and then I came to this thing where Stephen Hawking said that the universe is expanding, and in this expansion, everything is expanding away from each other at various speeds. The further out towards the edges, the faster it's going, but everything is moving away from everything else. And he used the metaphor of a loaf of raisin bread, that you have a loaf of raisin bread there, and when the loaf of raisin bread rises, as the yeast expands, all of the raisins move away from each other at the same speed. And they're all moving away from each other. And I actually envision my body with these different molecules, where he reads here that under the same conditions of pressure and temperature, here, equal volumes of all gases. His discovery that equal volumes of all gases under the same conditions of pressure and temperature contain the same number of molecules. And somehow I think that relates to the fact that I saw a topography of my body with different densities in my heart and different densities in my liver and in my lungs. And then all of a sudden, my body came out of that topography, and I understood it topologically. And so now all the molecules were the same distance from each other. So some were no longer closely packed, and some were no longer loosely packed. They were all equally loosely packed. That's the epiphany that I'm having, and I don't think I understand it, but I'm complete, Manu. What do you want to say?
Okay, let's get back to our usual mantra, duality. In the beginning, there was duality.
Mm.
And if you talk about Avogadro, he defined the number n is 10 to the power of 20 something.
It was F,
finite
it was
molecule.
10F squared plus 2.
Yes, but I'm saying in the number at what do you call normal temperature and pressure.
Right.
It is, that number is very well known. It's something 10, is 6 something, 10 to the power of 30 or something. Joe, you can look at it. You can
Yep.
Google it. But anyway, that is the IVM.
Yes.
And that number is the number of possible, the dimension of vertexes.
Okay.
Those are spheres. The vertexes are the spheres that are in that ether, wherever. And if they are vertexes, they got to be relations. Applying the principle, the general principle of duality. They got to be relations. So the relations are made possible by the fact that when those spheres come together, they are cubes, they are squares that form, and the proximity is what is the most important. And if remember, Steve, when we were talking about electrons not actually moving, but just a wave propagation, that is vibrating at a certain frequency locally, because vibrate and in touch with another one, is like it was instant, right? Very far away. So all of those things come together. It's like a jelly. You know, if you take a jelly with grains inside and you start stirring that stuff around, those little grains, which are the spheres in the jelly, they come in contact. And you had mark each of those spheres. You can now start defining distances. You can start defining frequencies. You can start defining something. The last point that I want to bring out, I always say that to understand physics, you only need a first and second derivation. Everything else is fractals. Fundamentally, I need my neighbor and my next neighbor. So I need my child and my grandchild. And everything else repeat. Parent, child, grandchild, repeat. And that's the essence to me of life and the dynamic of life in creation. Beyond the grandchild, we forget. But thankfully, it repeats. That's what forms cultures. That's what forms relationships. That's what forms societies. That's what forms whatever it is. Those are processes. I rest my case philosophically. And whoever want to take stage, take stage.
Okay, it is, you know what, it's 10:33. We have about 27 minutes left, and we've actually hit the end of this section. So maybe it's appropriate to, before we jump into the isotropic vector matrix, that we go ahead and ponder this, do our takeaways, and end tonight's call. How does everybody feel about that?
That's good. One last
Okay.
point. Let me just not,
Okay.
you remember that we always talk about the implied octahedron.
Right.
Today you talk about the implied tetrahedron
Right.
in a cube. Right? That we learn more today. If you
Okay,
want
cool.
to stabilize, the cube, if you want to create an anti-entropic, right, system, artifact, you need to imagine tetrahedra that you insert into the flow, that is the cube, in a way that it makes it stable for a while. That's why we make dams. We make dams by creating tetrahedra in the form of a hole or a barrier to the flow that stores energy, creates stability that we can use later on to generate electricity flow. So it's always timing. Boundary, space, flow, cycle, timing, and repeat. We always have to, like we are on the rafter of life, and then we jump on the side of a river, we see rafters passing, and then when we identify another rafter that is nice and favorable to us, we jump onto it and we travel. When we see the rapids down there that our rafter cannot stand, we jump aside and we wait for the rafter that will go through those rapids and land us down where there is more stable flow. That's the beauty of life. Yes.
Okay. Are we ready for takeaways?
Yes.
Richard, how are you feeling, and what are your takeaways tonight?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good, and my takeaway is just a fairly recent one. Is I was working with just drawing a square, and then creating a 2x2 matrix, and then putting the diagonals in each square. So each square turns into hinged triangles. And when I do that, and so when you have the vertical and the horizontal and the vertical inside the square, and you can see it three-dimensionally. You see the middle point, you pull it up, and you get your four triangles of a square-based pyramid, or your half an octahedron. But when I take the outside triangles on each little square and fold them underneath, then I get the full octahedron. And I've never seen the diagram that way before. I've never visualized it that way. And so that was pretty exciting for me to draw the square, put the vertical and the horizontal in, and then do two hinged triangles in each of the squares, and then visualize them three-dimensionally. And so I can see the half an octahedron, the Egyptian pyramid, and then when I fold the outside hinged triangle underneath, I complete the tetrahedron, or I mean the octahedron. And so that's really an important visual for me in terms of drawing models and working from the geometric sort of square and tetrahedron and octahedron. So thank you. This has been a revelation that I hadn't seen before in my own sort of drawings of three-dimensional tetrahedrons, laying them down flat into two-dimensional triangles. And now I can do the same thing with the square and the matrix, the divided matrix. So thank you. Anne, how are you feeling? What's your takeaway?
Hey, I I can say what a meeting it's been today. And I thought last week I would have missed the ending of this chapter, right? Going through the close packing and everything. So, and I know that normally by the end of the chapter, there's something that's gonna go wham, and it just happened today for me because when we talked about every time we talked about the tetrahedron, the octahedron. Yes, I can see the structures. I can see that, but it's kind of hanging kind of loosely by themselves and not coming together, you know. So when we went down the path of trying to figure out, so I really have to thank all of you for being here to like just unpack every single thing, every diagram, you know. I had a look at the diagram. I completely missed the 14 balls, right? And them coming together. And yes, Steve, I saw exactly what you saw. Those other balls inside there, but it's not kind of connecting, and I couldn't make sense of it either, right? But when you showed the star tetrahedron and all that, okay, I can see that, but what is this doing? So anyway, by just pulling out diagrams, because we didn't ask for the star tetrahedron, right? So you pull that out, and somehow it connected. So this is what I feel that this our meetings and this group has been doing amazingly well for all of us to be able to have our own discoveries as well. And I'm just absolutely thrilled because that wham moment was really huge. It was huge. It was not a small wham. Yeah. And lovely meeting you. Is it Lee? Did I catch that? Thank you. Lovely meeting you. And one thing, Manu, and one last thing is Manu. Just now you mentioned this Avogadro, right? And yes, this whole thing with the ratio of the number of whatever it is, the description here. It's yes, you're right. 6.022 yada yada, and multiplied by 10 to the power 23 moles. Yeah, so I know what that's calculating, but yes, the number is right there. Pretty interesting, and there's a drawing, a caricature of this Amedio himself, and I've seen his drawings around, but I just don't know the significance of what he has created or discovered. Yeah, and so okay, as we move further, I know this figure a lot more prominently, just like every time, you know, the names come up like Hiramin, was it Haramin, and
Yeah.
Om, and yes, Haramin, and then the other one is Wolfram. You know, like you
See Wolfram, yes.
yes, you all quote them so easily. And yeah, they're starting to come into, they're showing up everywhere now. Suddenly I'm realizing, and of course Leferts and this Amy Edmondson. So thank you very much, everybody. Completely love all of you, and this is just brilliant. Okay, so Joe, how do you feel, and what is your takeaway today?
I found it really interesting as well. There's actually, I'm looking at it from what Manu and obviously everybody else was talking about when it came to implied tetrahedrons. And what does that allow you to do? And it essentially allows you to understand the structures themselves, the boundaries themselves, and then you can start to break down and say, what are the qualities within that structure? you have a minimum structure that you're able to spot, but you're also able to start to break down what it is actually that's holding the structure together. And being able to spot that pattern, you can start to see, as what Manu was talking about, seeing the distances and the frequencies of things. And then within that, you can start to really kind of understand how dynamic systems work, I would say, and how essentially resilience is built into nature itself, to systems themselves. I'm more looking at it more from identifying, looking at patterns, and just thinking about the idea of implied tetrahedrons and what that actually means when I'm looking at a structure, and the integrity of a structure, I would say, as well. Especially when you think about it in terms of, well, tensegrity, essentially. When you look at the idea of the tension and the compression that is related between the square, so I'm just looking at it from that perspective, and I'm still thinking about a lot of this, because I got to tell you that initially wasn't as clear to me, but now it's becoming a little bit more clear to me, actually seeing everybody put their diagrams together and starting to see how the relationships work, how you bring stability to the square, and how actually Manu actually went about doing that, as did Steve. That was kind of that was a good example for me to see it geometrically speaking, but also to see what that means also for just understanding patterns in general. But yeah, anyway, it was interesting. I'm still thinking about it, still digesting it. Manu, how are you feeling? What are you taking away?
I'm really feeling good. And I don't know, the energy today is from the women. I just do. I do believe so. The men were overwhelming in the past, but today is just fantastic. Thank you, Anne. Thank Lynn. All right. My single point here is that of the importance of duality, and that triangulation is right, left, up, down, everywhere in the system. Triangulation is the way, the cornerstone to deduction and to induction. And those are the only two ways that we know, that we use, the only two techniques we use to understand systems. There's no other way. You deduct and you induct. So weigh, generalize, and deduct, and draw consequences. We derive and we integrate. We divide and we multiply. That's all we do. All knowledge that we build, universe as we define it, the sum total of our knowledge is on that basis of a duality of dividing, multiplying, of deriving, integrating, of awareness of the otherness. That's all we do. And I'm very thankful and very grateful to all your participation, you all. And I wish you a fantastic week ahead. It's still weekend for Steve. I think he's the only one, and Richard and Joe, they're the only one with weekends now. Anne and I, we already next day, we already Monday. And actually, Anne is going to Tuesday. so that's the way it is. That's the beauty of it. Who is left? Is it Steve? No, Lynn first.
Shall we ask Lee as well?
Yes, Lynn. Lynn, how do you feel? What do you take away? That's our ritual.
I can see so much more in the diagrams. It's very hard for me to consume what the wording is talking about, because I'm not a mathematician, but I am an artist. And boy, having the balls and the square inside really made sense. And then having the upper two, 5, no, 7, and connecting the 7 to 7 to make 14 to make a square was phenomenal. I enjoyed that.
Cool.
Pass it on to Steve.
All right. So I'm still mind boggled over 2 1/8 octahedra. I don't know what the hell that is. It has to do with a 7-ball tetrahedron, probably. If I make a triangle with spheres or balls, I can easily do that with 6. And I stack and I nest a ball on top of that. Evidently, that's 1/8 of an octahedron. So I've got to contemplate that for a while. And what the other magical thing here was that on page 140, we have down that I take these 2 7-ball tetrahedra, which are really 1/8 octahedra, and then I rotate them at 60 degrees. So in order to put them together. So look, I've discovered this difference between the idea of connecting spheres and nesting spheres. Somehow when the spheres nest, they rotate at 60 degrees. In other words, they go inside of each other instead of maintaining that 90-degree connectivity. So I'm thinking, okay, we connect at 90 degrees, but we nest at 60 degrees. And what the hell was that formula that you said about what? What formula did you say? What were you reading?
It was the guy, the name that came up in the book, Amedio Avogadro.
Avogadro. Yeah.
And you looked up a formula from him?
Yeah, because it was something that Manu said. Manu said that he's famous for this formula that he came up with. And
Yeah.
the formula is something about, let me see where I can find the beginning of the sentence. It
The
has
number of molecules that you can find on the same condition of pressure and temperature, in universe. Yes.
Yeah.
So
And-
so that's the formula.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So it's what it is. It is about the number of the elementary entities, which is the atoms, molecules, ions, and other particles. And so it's talking about the volume, right? The volume, they're the same under pressure, correct, Manu?
Right.
Yes.
And there is a formula to it, and it's exactly what Manu was saying, because he was saying it's six point something something, and then it's 10 to the power of something. And so I looked it up. And it is 6.022140076, and it's multiplied by 10 to the power of 23 moles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll look that up because I was contemplating this whole idea that that equal volumes of all gases under the same conditions of pressure and temperature contain the same number of molecules. That's interesting because some molecules are bigger than other molecules. So I'm going to take a look at different gases and see how many molecules they have. And I think this is relating back to this concept of topology.
Start your MD this September at RossMed and begin hands-on.
I hear some voice there. I think this relates back to topology versus topography. That's how we get the same number of molecules for different gases, even though the gases have different sized molecules. They have the same volume under the same pressure and temperature. Very interesting. So anyway, those were the notes. And listen, just like Manu's cube was all twisted up because his radii were of equal distance, I think that really was of an epiphany for me, because my eyeballs don't want to see 60 degrees. They want to see 90 degrees. And when Mono shows me a cube all munched up and mangled, I'd say that's not a cube. So what I've got to do is breathe and say, okay, that's a cube. And I go back to this, what I had in my meditation this last month was this idea of experiencing myself topologically, where all of my molecules moved out and different density of organs took the same space. And then when I got done, they all went back into their place with different densities. And that's what created a physical object. Topologically, there is no coffee cup. It's a freaking donut. So anyway, I'm pretty complete.
Your body is nesty.
I don't understand a word I said, but Manu's agreed with me. So that's probably pretty good. And Manu,
You have to
it was
feel.
good to
You
meet
have to feel the word you speak, Steve.
That's
You want
exactly
to
right.
understand it in one faculty, you're not going. You have to feel it.
That's true.
My sensibility at my last meditation was that I actually felt my spirit leave my body. When I breathed out, my spirit was out of my body, and I didn't want to breathe in again. I chose to breathe in, and when I breathed in, my spirit went back in my body. And when I got done with that, I suddenly got this vision of all the molecules in my body spreading out, being equidistant apart. And I was just like a loaf of raisin bread. And then I went back into my place again. So, okay, this has been good. And see, I had the vision last.
Beware, you go back to your place, we eat you.
Yeah, no kidding.
Mhm.
I'm really good
Yeah,
toasted,
you say.
Manu. I'm really good toasted.
Oh, and I also have an oxymoron here. Because of our meetings, I feel signs. I don't feel signs until our group here. I feel signs. They don't go together yet. Thank you.
You are in murmuration, like Steve said. In murmuration.
And murmur, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you, Joe,
Okay,
for
guys.
solving and keeping it together, Joe. Thank you very much, man.
Oh, no
Yes.
worries.
Okay,
No.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
You have a great night.
Good
Great
night.
week.
Same to you.